Welcome to War Bios, the podcast that delves into the complexities of military history's most pivotal conflicts. I'm your host, General Biography, and today we're going to explore one of the most significant amphibious assaults in modern history, Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of Sicily in 1943. The war in North Africa had finally come to an end with the surrender of Axis forces in May 1943, and the Allies were now poised to strike at the heart of Europe. The strategic island of Sicily, located just off the toe of Italy, was the next logical objective. The concept of invading Sicily had been gestating for months, with British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and American President Franklin D. Roosevelt discussing the idea as early as the Casablanca Conference in January 1943. The conference, held in the sun-drenched city of Casablanca, Morocco, marked a turning point in Allied strategy as leaders began to shift their focus from North Africa to the European theater. As the Allies began to contemplate an invasion of Sicily, they faced numerous challenges. The island was heavily fortified, with over 300,000 Axis troops stationed along its coastlines and in its interior. The terrain itself was also a formidable obstacle, with steep cliffs, rocky beaches, and treacherous mountain roads that would test the mettle of even the most seasoned soldiers. Despite these challenges, the Allies pressed on, driven by the knowledge that an invasion of Sicily could deal a significant blow to Axis power in the Mediterranean. In the months leading up to the invasion, Allied forces conducted a series of smaller-scale operations aimed at weakening the Axis grip on the region. On May 13, 1943, Allied troops captured the island of Pantelleria, located between Sicily and Tunisia, which provided a crucial airbase for future operations. Meanwhile, British and American submarines patrolled the waters around Sicily, intercepting Axis supply ships and disrupting the enemy's logistics. The Allies also launched a series of bombing raids against Axis airfields and ports in Sicily, aiming to weaken the enemy's air power and disrupt their ability to respond to an invasion. The planning phase was marked by intense debate and negotiation among the Allied leaders. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, who would later become the Supreme Allied Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, played a crucial role in coordinating the efforts of the various military branches and national contingents. Meanwhile, Admiral Andrew Cunningham and Air Chief Marshal Arthur Tedder worked tirelessly to ensure that the naval and air support necessary for the invasion was in place. As the Allies prepared to launch Operation Husky, they drew on the lessons learned from previous campaigns, including the disastrous Dieppe raid in August 1942. The experience gained from these earlier operations helped shape the tactics and strategies employed during the Sicily campaign, which would ultimately prove to be a decisive turning point in the war. The Allies had chosen to invade Sicily at two main beaches. The British forces would land on the southeastern coast near Syracuse, while the American forces would land on the southern coast near Gela. On July 10, 1943, the Allied invasion of Sicily began in earnest as a massive armada of ships and landing craft approached the island shores. The air was thick with tension as thousands of troops prepared to storm the beaches, facing a heavily fortified enemy who would stop at nothing to defend their territory. As the British forces landed near Syracuse, they were met with fierce resistance from German and Italian troops. However, the Allies had a crucial advantage: the element of surprise. The Axis powers had expected an invasion, but they had not anticipated the sheer scale and ferocity of the Allied assault. Meanwhile, American forces landing near Gela faced similar challenges, as they battled their way through treacherous terrain and withstood withering fire from enemy strongpoints. Despite these obstacles, the Americans made steady progress, pushing inland and securing key objectives such as the town of Licata and the airfield at Ponte Olivo. One of the most significant factors that contributed to the Allied success in Sicily was the innovative use of airborne troops. On the night of July 9–10, a vast fleet of transport planes and gliders had taken to the skies, carrying thousands of paratroopers and glider-borne infantry behind enemy lines. Although the operation was marred by confusion and mishaps, the airborne troops played a crucial role in disrupting Axis communications and supply lines, paving the way for the seaborne invasion. As the battle raged on, the Allies began to gain momentum, pushing the Axis forces back and securing key terrain features such as the city of Palermo and the strategic port of Messina. The Axis powers, however, refused to yield, and the fighting was fierce and intense, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Darby, who led a battalion of American Rangers in a daring raid on the German-held town of Gela. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, Darby's men fought valiantly, securing key objectives and holding off repeated counterattacks. The Allies have secured a foothold on the island, but the battle is far from over. The battle for Sicily may be won, but the war is far from over, and we're honored to have you along for the journey. The Axis powers, led by General Alfredo Guzzoni, had launched a series of fierce counterattacks against the Allied forces, hoping to drive them back into the sea. However, the Allies, bolstered by their initial successes and reinforced by fresh troops and supplies, were determined to press on and secure the island. One of the most significant challenges faced by the Allies during this period was the rugged terrain of Sicily itself. The island's mountainous interior, with its steep hills and narrow valleys, made it difficult for armor and artillery to maneuver, forcing the infantry to fight a grueling and often brutal campaign on foot. The summer heat and dust only added to the misery, as troops on both sides struggled to cope with the harsh conditions. Despite these challenges, the Allies continued to push forward, driven by their superior numbers, firepower, and logistical support. On July 22, 1943, American forces captured the key city of Palermo, securing a crucial port and paving the way for further advances. The British, meanwhile, had pushed deep into the island's interior, capturing the town of Enna and threatening the Axis lines of communication. As the battle raged on, the Axis powers began to falter, their troops exhausted and demoralized by the relentless Allied pressure. On August 12, 1943, German forces launched a final, desperate counterattack against the American lines near the town of Troina, but it was repelled with heavy losses. The writing was now on the wall. Sicily would soon fall to the Allies. On August 17, 1943, the last Axis troops evacuated the island, marking the end of Operation Husky. The campaign had been a resounding success for the Allies, who had secured a vital strategic objective and paved the way for further advances in Italy. However, it had come at a high cost. Over 20,000 Allied troops had been killed or wounded, while Axis losses were estimated at over 30,000. The invasion of Sicily had demonstrated the feasibility of large-scale amphibious operations, paving the way for future landings in Italy and Normandy. It had also highlighted the importance of cooperation between Allied forces, as American, British, Canadian, and other troops worked together to achieve a common objective. In conclusion, Operation Husky was a testament to the bravery, determination, and sacrifice of the troops who fought in Sicily during the summer of 1943. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.